like to welcome all my fellow bargain-minded firearms enthusiasts. We're going to talk about the CMMG 22 Long Rifle AR Conversion Kit. And is it too good to be true? And prices in your area may vary, but for me, if I buy twice a year, I can get a box of this Wolf Gold 20 rounds for $6.25 at the gun show. Now, I can't speak for all of you, but for many of us, $6.25 is certainly a meaningful amount of money. So 20 shots for that price, you can't shoot that much. As many of you have kids and other responsibilities, and I get that. So since I can't afford to be shooting all the time, I spend time on gun deals looking for some bargains so that I can get my accessories on the cheap. And what I stumbled across, and seemed too good to be true, was this 22 conversion kit. I can get a replacement bolt carrier group and convert my rifle to 22, and for the cost of 20 rounds, same for a box of mini mags, $6.25. If I buy them at the gun show, I can shoot 100 rounds of that. That's pretty substantial. So our master plan is as follows. We're gonna take a look at what comes in the package, talk a little bit about the price, some of the options. I've got 2 test guns all fired up and ready to go. We took it to the range. I'm going to show you what my results were for accuracy and point of aim and point of impact shift from 223 to 22. We'll discuss a few issues I had with it and how CMMG helped me resolve it through customer service, and then we will call it a day, and then you can decide if this is the right thing for you. So for $157.50 from Brownells, this is what I got. Or if you're flush with cash, you can buy this directly from CMMG for $260. If you're buying this conversion kit, you're probably not loaded. So Brownells is probably the way to go. Inside, you get some nice packaging, a 25 round magazine, the bolt carrier group, which we'll look at a little more in depth. Oh. And what's this? 2 more magazines. So we'll start out with the magazine. It's about what you'd expect from a 22. You can see some powder residue on this thing. I had a great time with it. And you do have to push the rim back and underneath the feed lips just like you would with any 22. You can't just push them all straight down like you would with a 223 and an AR magazine. So these, like we said, are 25 round magazines. If you want to get more, they're about $20 to $25 each, and if you're feeling really spicy, GSG and Black Dog both make compatible 110 round drum magazines that work with this bolt carrier as well. So this is the bolt carrier group, the meat and potatoes of the system. But before we look too closely at that, we're going to let one of my trusted longtime associates take a few shots with it. Rather than utilize the buffer and buffer spring in the AR, it's got its own spring. It's a blowback. And so if these look awfully familiar in profile, it's because this tube goes down and head spaces as if it were the 223 or 5.56 round in the chamber. Our feed ramp. And bolt face and firing pin back here. So the gas system vents the gas back, of course, but does nothing. This is actually just a blowback. And then this sacrificial brass ring that you see that's all scratched up, that goes into the star chamber and holds things steady. So that is the premise of function for the device. Why don't we put that theory into practice, and I will tell you about the installation process with my rifles. And it's going to take a little bit of a circuitous route, and you can decide if this is right for you based on my experience with it. And just to backpedal a little bit, if anyone's wondering what the Bravo is for the Bravo portion of the conversion kit, that has to do with the features. This is the most basic one. You can get it upgraded with a bolt hold open, which this does not offer, and you can also get it with a auto sear trip, so that it would work with a fully automatic drop-in sear or with a Fostech Echo trigger. So getting back on track, the first rifle I attempted to install this in, I should say attempted. This is a Aero Precision lower and a Palmetto State Armory upper. So I removed the bolt, as you would. Threw in the conversion kit, and unfortunately, it only went in about this far. It wouldn't go flush. And when I pulled it out, there was some scratches on this brass bushing, and far more severe than what you're seeing right now. I was, of course, dismayed, but not defeated, so I went on to try it in my second rifle. I went to the safe and grabbed my Aero 16-inch pencil barrel mid-length gas system, and you've seen a lot of this rifle, and I'm sure we'll see a lot of it going forward. This is one of my favorites. And tried the kit in there. So I was immediately pleased to see that it fit, and then I went to give it a functions check, charged it, and it hung up about there. At which point I probably spent a good 30 minutes working it back and forth and lubing the whole assembly up and doing my best to get the thing to function correctly, and unfortunately it would not. Fortunately, unless you ask my wife, there was a third option available. You can see I've got some sadly empty looking rings here, eagerly awaiting a new scope to fill them up. This rifle was the one that I was least excited about using the conversion kit with. My goal for this is to go to the Cocoa Head shooting complex and shoot as tiny little holes as possible at 100 yards, and that's just not going to happen with 22. But as a proof of concept, I diligently got the conversion kit, popped it open, tried it out. And as life sometimes goes, it functioned flawlessly. So at this point, I had about a 30-minute head scratcher as I was trying to figure out why it would function in the stainless steel barrel, but not in the carbine pencil barrel. I had that thing out, I oiled it up and looked at the wear marks, and finally, in what might have been my most perfect moment, I swapped out the charging handles, and the thing worked perfectly. So, charging handles were the problem. However, that still left me with it not fitting into the chamber of the PSA upper, which is the one I wanted to use it with the most. So, with that, we got on the horn with CMMG's customer service, and they actually responded quite quickly. I talked to them on a Sunday night, and they got back to me, I believe, on Monday morning. So here's a copy of the email I got from CMMG customer service, and it reads, Professor Northwoods, it's due to the fact that PSA uses a barrel extension that is slightly tighter than mil-spec standard. This is not a bad thing when considering accuracy in 223 5.56. Best thing to do would be to sand down the external diameter of the bushing. Shouldn't require much, about 0.03 of an inch. That's actually why we use the brash bushing. It's a softer material that can be modified easily in the event of tolerance specs differ. In my first idle moment, I took myself to the tool chest, found some 600 grit in the calipers, and sure enough, Brian knows his business. It was exactly 0.03 of an inch. And we were in business with the PSA upper. So our first test rifle is this Aero Precision lower, PSA upper, and we use the classic carrying handle and iron sights, and this has got your carbine length gas system, and then the military 203 cut profile 16 and change inch barrel. So when I was looking at the slow motion footage, I noticed there was a substantial amount of bounce when you chamber a new round. So that may be a source of concern for some of you. So if you're wondering why the bounce of the bolt's a problem in the blowbacks, and you can see this in 9mm versions as well, there's a safety feature built into an AR bolt where the bolt locks into the lugs when it goes into battery, but if it's not in battery and you hit the firing pin, it can't penetrate the bolt face and get to the round. But when it is in battery and it's engaged, that's when the firing pin can pass through. So the risk with the blowback design bolts is that you can get a round that will ignite if it's bounced back out of battery. Now, to be fair, I have no documented information of this occurring with the CMMG bolt carrier group, but we do know that it's happened with AR9s in the past, so just beware if you're doing a lot of rapid firing. Well, I have to assume that this is the reason many of you are here, and that's to see the point of aim and point of impact shift. On the left, I've got some 223 Wolf Gold that we shot, and we got a 2.5 to 3 inch group. We had a pretty substantial wind that day. On the right, we have the CMMG target, and well, at first glance, it's rather distressing. Remember, not all these shots were taken by me, whereas the target on the left was, and my coworker doesn't have the similar experience using the military-style peep sights. But if you look a little closer, you can see that there is some consistency to the group, and whereas our 223 shots were pretty much centered on target, you can see the point of aim shifted about 2 to 3 inches before we get our serious grouping, and then you see that it's gone a bit to the left as well, and I think we could safely attribute that to the decreased muzzle velocity and the crosswind. And as I said, that was iron sights, and that's got a much larger margin for error. So let's move on to our second test rifle, and I think you're going to be much more pleased with our consistency there. So this is our second test rifle. It's actually 2 in 1. I've got a 20-inch barrel that doesn't have an optic on it yet, so I took the lower from that with the PRS stock and the bipod and the monopod and transferred all that over to a 16-inch pencil barrel, and that's with the Hollow Sun red dot. And I wanted to see what kind of improved accuracy I could get out of that over the iron sights. And I suspect the pencil barrel may have given us some interesting results, but we'll cover that momentarily. So this shooting was done a week later with the rifle you just saw, although again I reiterate I did it with the bipod and the monopod. So it should have been about as tight as I can get. You can see I took a couple practice shots with the 223 here and here, and fair warning, this barrel gets a little wild as it heats up, but you can see we had some nice consistent groups here. So even with the barrel heating up, we've got about a 2-inch group. So remember when I said we'd get interesting results from the pencil barrel? We've got a 6-inch shift from point of aim from point of impact. Both 16-inch barrels, both 1/7 twist. So the best explanation I could come up with for this dramatic shift in point of aim and point of impact, and this is after some research, was barrel whip. And barrel whip's the natural flexing that you're going to get with your barrel every time you fire a round. With the much higher muzzle velocity and pressures of the 223 and 5.56, you're going to get a much more dramatic barrel whip than you would with the much lighter load of the 22 long rifle. And then that's further exaggerated by the slim pencil barrel, which allows for more flex. It's a little hard to make out in the video, but down here is one of the holes, and then that's the most distant. So we've got a 9-inch spread, although the bulk of the shots are within 3 to 4 inches. And remember, this is 50 yards for 22. Most people sight in their 22 for 25 to 50 yards, which is a intersecting point of aim and point of impact. Ladies and gentlemen, it has been a long road. We've had a lot of Renaissance, not nearly enough Northwoods, for which I apologize. I will roll in the rest of the shooting video at the end after me in the cheese top hat, so you can check that out if you want and see some mag changes. So I've got 150 rounds through this thing at this point. It's functioned flawlessly. We've worked all the kinks out of it. The bushing works just fine going into the star chamber on the PSA upper. The charging handles aren't causing trouble anymore. It seems to have worn in after a little bit of a break-in period. And for 160 bucks, I think I did okay. If it's a concern to you, you feel like it's a little more work and maintenance than you'd like, save up your beer money. And for maybe 100 bucks more, you can get a nice Ruger 1022. So, would I buy it again? Yeah, I think so. It wasn't perfect, but it's been a fun project. The accuracy isn't stellar at 50 yards, but it's 22. What'd you expect? It's going to be fine for 25, and the intended prey for this rifle is anything that I can find at Goodwill that meets my quality standards. So I think this thing's going to work out just fine. I'll report back after we get a higher round count through it, and we'll let you know how it goes. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you soon.